Welcome to the start of a real-world application development course. My name is Tim Corey, and I'm inviting you to follow me as I give you a look at how real-world application development gets done. In this start-to-finish course, we will be building a full, multi-part application that actually works. Along the way, there will be design changes, technology upgrades, and new requirements, just like there is in the real world. Now, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Tim Corey, and it's my goal to make learning C# easier. The best way to learn C# is to practice it. Standalone tutorials are great, but until you put what you learn into practice, you can't really be sure you've learned it. That's why I build start-to-finish courses, not just tutorials. This way, you get to see how the various parts you have learned fit together. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my goals, plans, and expectations for this course. But before I do, I would recommend that you make sure you're subscribed to this channel and that you selected the little bell icon to notify you whenever a new video gets released. That way, you don't miss an installment of this course. Next, I encourage you to make a plan as to when you will watch these videos. Put it on the calendar. If your personal growth is important, you should schedule it. Finally, make sure you follow along and create the code as I do. This hands-on work will definitely improve your understanding of what you're learning. Now, before I move on, I do want to mention a couple of ways you can upgrade your experience with this course. First, if you join my mailing list, you'll gain access to special contests and giveaways that I'll be offering to my mailing list. These will be exclusive to the list and will not be offered again later, so the sooner you join, the better. Second, for everyone on Patreon who supports me at $5 a month or more, I'll be giving you my source code each week. That will allow you to follow along, but also have the safety of my code as a backup in case you run into an issue. Both of those links are in the description down below. Okay, let's look at the purpose of this course. There are three main purposes I have for this course. The first one is to provide a clear demonstration on how to build a real-world application. So that's really it. We're building a real application, and here's how to do it. The second purpose is to demonstrate how various topics fit together. So you've learned all these different pieces in these tutorials, but how do they fit together? How do they interact? This course, that's part of its purpose, is to put those together into a whole. And finally, the purpose is to create a learning platform for future demonstrations. One of the limitations tutorials have is the idea of, well, how does this apply in the real world? How do I take an existing application and use this new thing you showed me? With this course, we'll have that platform to say, okay, let's see how to integrate that into this platform. So those are the three purposes. Now, let's move on to video design. So each of my videos in this course will focus on one topic. Now, what that means is they're going to be somewhat standalone while still fitting in the larger whole. That means that if you were to step in to a video and you want to learn about unit testing, and you saw a video in this course, maybe 5, 6, 8 down the road, where you said, okay, that's the video that's on unit testing. You could watch just that video and see how unit testing works and how to fit into a real application. Now, obviously, there's a larger whole, and the main purpose is for you to start at video 1, this video, and move all the way through to the end. But, like I said, you can pull out pieces if you want to either refresh your memory on something, or if you are working on something specific right now and you see a video that covers it. So it's designed to do both. Now, also, what future videos cover will partially depend on your interaction. So ask questions and give your opinion to shape this course. So the comments are actually really important in this course, because as you make suggestions, this course may adjust or make tweaks to either the application or what technologies we use or how we use something. If I make a mistake, point it out. I'll see if I can get it fixed in the next video. I'm not going to record these months in advance. I'm recording these pretty much a week in advance. So if you make a suggestion, you may even get in the next video, you may actually see your suggestion implemented. Okay? So definitely interact and shape this course by your suggestions. Okay, let's look at my goals. So my goals are first to demonstrate modern development techniques. So I want you to be able to see how a senior developer approaches something, or how a developer in general approaches an application and builds it. Second, I want to model how an application grows over time. That's one of those things you don't really see until you're working in a job. You don't really see how an application kind of grows and changes over time. And so you might come in, if you have no work experience, you might come in thinking, man, these companies should just do this. But once you've seen how an application grows over time, you go, well, that's not really realistic to change like that immediately. That's why some companies in a clothing store or a grocery store or something like that, where we have inventory and we sell inventory. But just like with a real work environment, this is going to change over time. And also, we may assign a totally different task. So that's our basic focus, though, right now, is working for Timco Enterprise Solutions on the Timco Retail Manager. So our initial project is we need to build a desktop app that runs a cash register, handles inventory, and manages the entire store. That's a very, very broad set of requirements. We're going to have to figure out, how do we tackle that? Now, in order for it to grow, we're going to be creating a web API layer. So this is one of those things that I add right away that I said, okay, I kind of pushed back on the boss and said, you want a desktop app, that's great, but I can see you almost immediately saying, well, we want to sell online now. And that means a whole new application if I didn't design it with that in mind. So what we're going to do is actually create a web API layer that can service a desktop application or a web application or even a mobile application. Okay, so that's the initial project we'll be working on. let's look at my plan. My plan is to build an MVP, a minimum viable product, first, so we can expand to cover all the features we need over time. So essentially create this little application that does the bare minimum. And then we'll keep adding features and abilities to it over time to kind of grow it into a full-featured application. So the first step is to get all the major pieces set up. And the major pieces include, we're going to have this run with Git on Azure DevOps, meaning we're going to have source control on this, and we're going to put that source control in the cloud with Azure DevOps. We can run it locally. You don't have to have Azure DevOps if you don't want to, but I would encourage Git to kind of get that feel for source control. This is one of those things that you will definitely use in the real world. There are very few companies out there that are building software that don't use source control. And of those, that group is kind of shrinking because it's very, very dangerous. So we're definitely going to use Git. Next, we're going to use SQL Server data tools to build a SQL database. We have to have something to store our data in. And for enterprise applications, SQL Server makes the most sense. However, that doesn't mean we're going to be tied to only SQL. There may come a time down the road where we switch over to something else. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Next, we're going to use Web API. That's that middle layer that allows us to go to desktop, web, or mobile applications. But part of that will be authentication. An application doesn't make sense for retail management if it doesn't have some sort of authentication in place to prevent people from doing things they're not allowed to prevent people from stealing and all the rest. So we're going to put that authentication in right from the start. And finally, the desktop app is going to be a WPF application that can log into the API. So that's the major pieces to get set up immediately to then start working on our application. So that's the initial plan of the things we need to get set up, configured, and at least started on the building process. All right, so let's look at what other technologies we'll be bringing into this application. This is just a short list of the things that I'm seeing coming down the road that I really want to get into this application. Unit testing, that's a must. We're going to have unit testing in this application to make sure we validate that the code we write is working, essentially. Next, dependency injection. I really want to follow as much as possible the solid principles in this application. And part of that is the dependency inversion principle. Now, I could create a factory pattern and set up a factory for my dependencies, but instead, we're going to use AutoFac to allow us to do dependency injection and make our lives a whole lot easier. So dependency injection. We use WPF, of course, and with that, we'll use MVVM with Caliburn Micro. Coming up, we'll also use ASP.NET MVC. That'll be our web front end that will come at some point. Now, next on this is the upgrade list, .NET Core. So right now we're going to be doing things on .NET Framework, but .NET Core 3.0 is coming out. It's not here yet, but it's coming out. And one of the things that does is it even changes WPF and the code behind it. And so we're looking at, do we upgrade even our WPF, but also change over our MVC site over to .NET Core, probably with Razor pages even, and also our API as well. So we'll look to move to .NET Core at some point with this application. But again, I want to start in .NET Framework so we have that experience in what businesses are using today, and also have the experience of what businesses want from developers, which is people that can help them move to the new technology, not just start over in the new technology. We're using SQL Server data tools, we've pointed that out, and Git, and Azure DevOps. Like I said before, we'll also be using design patterns like Solid to help us create an application that is robust easy to maintain, easy to upgrade, and easy to understand at the same time. Async. So there's a lot of stuff in here that's going to need to be asynchronous in order to keep our application performant. How we do that, we'll have to figure out. What we do with that, we'll figure out. But async will definitely be a part of this whole application. Reporting. You can't really have an application that deals with retail management without having some type of reporting system. So we'll incorporate that as well. Web API, that's going to be our control layer, our central layer that everything goes through. Logging. This is something that often gets overlooked until it's really needed, or maybe until it's past due, and that is logging. The idea of tracking what's going on with our application, from errors and exceptions all the way down to just general information about how the application flow is going. So we'll be incorporating that as well. There's going to be some debate there, and I'm a big fan of Log4Net, but there's also the possibility of using nlog or another tool. And so we'll have some feedback from you on what you would like to see in this application there. Data validation. We'll probably do something like Fluent validation, but again, we'll have some feedback there as well. And then we'll see some HTML, CSS, and some JavaScript. Nothing too advanced, I don't think, but we'll have some manipulation and changing of those three items with our web applications. And finally, authentication will be a big piece. Not only will we authenticate that a person can log in, but then we'll give them permissions. What can they do? What can't they do? And we'll limit our API to only videos still as well, interspersed. So if there is a time where I want some more feedback from you, I may pause the course creation to wait for more feedback and instead put a standalone video in for the next week. Also, don't forget that the Thursday videos are unrelated to this. The Thursday videos, the weekly challenge videos, will continue on as normal. There'll be still standalone challenges on Thursday every week. Okay, number 4. Why don't you just build this all in .NET Core right away? Well, that doesn't really simulate what you're going to see in the marketplace. If you want to get a job in development, or if you have a job in development and want to move to a different job, or if you just want to see what people are doing, developers are doing, they're not developing brand new applications in .NET Core right now. Not usually. Okay. Now, obviously, there are companies out there building new applications, and definitely there's a lot of companies using .NET Core. But the majority of companies who are software development shops who are older than a few years have applications in the full .NET framework. And so we're going to simulate that same company. We're going to simulate a company doing that, where they're taking existing knowledge of .NET Framework, which is years old. Maybe you can have over a decade of experience in .NET Framework. You can't have a decade of experience in .NET Core. So your developers are more comfortable there, your senior developers and your mid-level developers. And so a new company might actually even start with .NET Framework today. But either way, whether it's an established company with an established application or a new company with established developers, you're going to see a .NET Framework application a lot still. This will allow us to not only simulate that, but also simulate the idea and teach you how to move from those .NET Framework applications over to .NET Core, not just start from scratch. That gives you the experience then to take your company or your potential company and help them move from their .NET Framework application over to .NET Core. Okay, number 5. What if I don't want to learn X technology? And I hear this a lot. So people will say, well, I'm a desktop developer, so I don't need anything to do with web. Or I'm a web developer, so I don't need anything to do with desktop. I disagree on this quite a bit. And the reason why is because, yes, that may be your preference. And yes, you may be at a company where you're currently in that technology. But one of the things that a software developer really needs to do is be well-rounded enough to handle other situations. So if you get laid off your current job, you're limiting your field by saying, I won't do this, not even a little bit. Okay. So really for a long time, I was a desktop app developer. I built web apps. I built mobile apps. I built services. I built console apps because of the fact that even though I was primarily a desktop developer, I had those other abilities that made me a more rounded, more sought after candidate as a developer. Also, you're really just pushing your knowledge in C# in general. The idea that you would, not do a certain area, it's somewhat limiting. Okay? Even for me, one of the things I have not done yet, simply because I don't have enough time, is I haven't moved into Xamarin, which is the mobile C# development side. Guess what I'm working on? Moving into Xamarin. Because I need to expand my knowledge and my ability in C#, and that's one of the ways I can do it. So I would encourage you not to limit yourself to only a certain subset, but instead to at least have a passing knowledge in the different areas. That grows you developer, that grows your skills overall in object-oriented programming. It grows your skills in C# in general. And these are all things that help with your given area as well. All right. And number 6, this next one, it's kind of more, this is my sentiment. Where do we start and when do we start? So the next video in this series will start right away. And with that, we're going to start with Git and getting things started with our source control. So that's the first place we'll start. And we'll start right away in the next video actually building stuff. Okay? I can't wait to start. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.